From the beautiful city of Los Angeles, California, we bring you the Gimme 3 podcast.
Welcome back, cinephiles, cinema lovers, movie appreciators, and of course, our family and friends to the Gimme 3 podcast, a series for cinephiles. As you all know, or if you're new to the show, this is the podcast where we dive into 3 films connected by one theme. I'm Bella of Stratus, and today I'm joined by my spectacular co-host, Nicholas Ibarra. Nick, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Some very interesting movies we're going to be chatting about today, which I'm stoked on.
Yeah.
And of course, I mean, how can you complain? I've gotten to watch 9 Philip Seymour Hoffman performances in the last 3 weeks, so I genuinely feel like I have a stronger, understanding of the craft. I feel like I can be an actor.
Yeah. You could take on the legacy he left behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd
totally
be a terrible move for me if I chose to do that right.
I love that. Yeah, these past few weeks we've been on just the most incredible journey through some of Philip Seymour Hoffman's best work, I would say. We started with a spotlight on 3 powerful starring roles. Last week, we covered 3 extraordinary collaborations with his longtime creative partner in crime, Paul Thomas Anderson. Mm-hmm. And this week, we're ending this tribute series with 3 of Hoffman's iconic supporting roles. And yeah, like you said, that's 9 films under our belt, and yet I feel like we've still barely scratched the surface of his work.
Right.
This man was just such a legend. I've really enjoyed every performance we've watched throughout this entire series wholeheartedly. I actually wanted to ask you, Nick, out of all 9 films that we've watched now, if you had to choose a favorite role or performance of his, which one would you choose?
Whew.
It's a tough one.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I think, okay, this is not really answering your question. I think
that's fine.
If I'm going to watch one movie, the movie that I will rewatch over and over and over again of the 9 that we've discussed,
yeah,
is probably one of the ones that we're going to talk about today, which is The Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
It's so rewatchable. I can put it on at any time and just get totally sucked in. My favorite Hoffman performance of the 9 films, originally going into this whole series, this whole Hoffman extravaganza, I thought it would have been The Master. But now I'm kind of feeling Synecdoche, New York, just because of what a marvel that performance is, how fascinating it is, that, and I haven't fully cracked it. There's still a lot more for me to explore and try and figure out with that performance. So for now, I'm going to say Synecdoche, New York. And then
I love that.
And then my favorite movie of the bunch would probably be Master. So you asked me a very simple question, and I gave you a very convoluted answer. How was that?
He gave you 3 answers. I love it.
Give me 3 podcasts, goddammit.
Yeah, exactly. That's how we do it here. So perfect. No, honestly, I would agree. Like I love The Big Lebowski so much. That would be my answer as well. That's a film I can come back to time and time again. I love Philip Seymour Hoffman's character in it. But I would say that is it almost ties with Scotty J in Boogie Nights. I fell in love with Scotty J.
Yeah, Scotty's great. You know.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, with every movie we've watched, I'm just constantly blown away by Hoffman's incredible range, the way he commands the screen regardless of a small or a big role. His effortless chemistry with every co-star in every film. I feel like he just plays so well off of everyone that we've seen. And above all, something, we've talked about in every episode in this series is just his chameleon-like ability to completely transform into these characters. It's just so incredible to watch. So for our theme today, gimme 3 iconic supporting roles of Philip Seymour Hoffman. Obviously, Nick and I chose The Big Lebowski, of course, because it's an instant classic and one of the best movies ever.
Yep.
And Hoffman has, obviously, as I said before, has such a funny role in it and just gives us another fantastic and memorable performance. And for the other two films on the lineup for today, we asked you, our lovely listeners and fans, to vote on 2 out of 8 films. So, as you know, that lineup consisted of The Talented Mr. Ripley, Mission Impossible 3, Scent of a Woman, the Hunger Games sequel, Catching Fire, Along Came Polly, The Ides of March, Moneyball, and Spike Lee's 25th Hour. So quite a range of films, each one's pretty different from the next.
Quite a range of films, and all of them pretty goddamn good, too.
Exactly. I was like, once again, proving Hoffman can do it all. So in the final round, it came down to The Talented Mr. Ripley versus Moneyball, and Along Came Polly versus Scent of a Woman. Drum roll, please, Nicholas, for the results. Perfect. The 2 winners are The Talented Mr. Ripley and Scent of a Woman. I was so relieved The Talented Mr. Ripley won. Don't get me wrong, I love Moneyball. I think that's a great film as well. But Ripley's just one of my favorites, and I hadn't seen it in so long, so I was really excited to revisit it. And then Scent of a Woman, I'll admit, Along Came Polly is a family favorite in the Stratus family, so I'm sure they were a little bit sad. But that being said, I was really happy that there was at least one film in this lineup that I hadn't seen. So Scent of a Woman was a first-time watch for me. Were any of these 3 films first-time watches for you?
Not in this episode. I will say I have seen the last time I saw Scent of a Woman, I think I was probably 10 years old. So
oh, wow. That's,
basically a first-time watch. I don't remember diddly squat about it. And I certainly don't remember Al Pacino screaming, "Tits! Nipples!" I'm like, what the fuck is happening here?
Yeah, much to talk about on that one. Many thoughts on that one. Well, anyways, without further ado, I'm ready to dive into these 3 films if you're ready to go.
Yes, we're going to start with tits, nipples. I'm feeding you pearls here, boy. Scent of a Woman, 1992 film directed by Martin Brest. Speaking of tits.
Yeah.
Starring Al Pacino, Chris O'Donnell, James Rebhorn, and, of course, Philip Seymour Hoffman. And this film, Scent of a Woman, it follows Charlie Sims, who is a young prep school student who's been given no favors in his life. He's had to work to get where he's at. This is a very different story from, like some of his classmates, including this George Willis Jr., who's played by our guy, Philip Seymour Hoffman. And one night, Charlie is a witness to some of these rich kids about his school as they pull off a pretty elaborate prank. And this prank embarrasses the dean. And so the dean interrogates Mr. Charlie Sims, who's played by Chris O'Donnell. He interrogates him and he bribes him. The dean bribes this kid. He says, "You need a rat on your friends, and then I'll make sure you get into some Ivy League school." So that's kind of the setup of the film, which ends up taking us in a completely different direction shortly thereafter, because it's Thanksgiving weekend and Charlie takes this side job as a caretaker for a blind, retired Army Colonel, Frank Slade, played by Al Pacino, in one of the most subtle performances, I think, ever to grace the screen. I'm kidding, of course. This is fucking the antithesis of subtlety.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So Charlie is supposed to, over this Thanksgiving weekend, he's supposed to keep Frank at home, make sure he doesn't drink too much. Basically, just spend the weekend in this nice suburban home. But Frank has other plans. He tricks Charlie into going to New York City with him, where Frank can drink as much as he wants, eat a nice steak dinner, visit his estranged brother, woo women, just smell random women walking the streets. That's why I call it a scent of a woman, because this guy likes to smell women. Oh, yeah, and he might want to kill himself also. So that's the plan anyway.
Right.
Bella, your thoughts on Scent of a Woman?
Oh man, this is I think it's really funny that this is such a like specific type of movie. Like a young outcast at a preppy college has to hang out with an old mean guy, and then maybe they get along, maybe they don't.
It's a genre. It's a total subgenre.
It's a total subgenre. Obviously reminded me a lot of The Holdovers, which I love. I mean, I'm not criticizing this at all, but I actually really enjoyed this movie, even though it is like 5 hours long. It's like the longest movie ever. But I actually
it
really
has a
enjoyed
runtime I think of like 2 hours and 40 minutes. So
yeah, it's actually not that bad, but even though I did enjoy it, it does feel long, if that makes sense. Like
totally.
But I wasn't like, oh, when is this gonna end? Because Al Pacino gives such a crazy performance. And I actually really liked. I can't think of his name. What was the kid's name who played Charlie?
Chris O'Donnell.
Yeah, I actually really liked his performance as well. I thought like the progression over time of like being very soft spoken and then kind of coming out of his shell. He did a great job with that. And this movie was also just like almost like a dark comedy in a way where it was so funny, but there were so many like really intense elements brewing beneath the surface at all times pretty much. I really liked this movie. Also, of course, our man of the hour, Philip Seymour Hoffman, young preppy schoolboy Philip Seymour Hoffman smoking a cigarette is a visual I didn't know I needed in my life until I saw it.
Right.
And so like that character introduction is so good. He's got like the floppy like ruffled hair and like a sly scheming smirk. Like he's just the kind of character you want to punch in the face.
Totally.
So I thought he was perfect for that.
Yeah, it was fun to watch yet another version of Philip Seymour Hoffman in this. And again, nine different films we are discussing in this series, and truly it's 9 vastly different performances and characters.
Oh yeah.
And this one, he's such a, fucking slime ball, pompous little bitch, which is up there with my least favorite kind of human. Spoiled little bitches. It's like up there with my least favorite kind of people. Never been a fan since day one. Never been a fan.
Yep.
Everybody's hating on Drake right now. I'd be like, shit, I've been hating on Drake. Day one hater right
Literally.
Here. Day one hater. I've been day one hater. So anyways.
Happy to hear that.
So he did his job because he really made me hate him in this film. And then towards the end of the film, I was like, God, what are you talking about? That's my boy Phil. I can't hate this guy. But he made me forget,
He's so good. And I feel like he only gets worse throughout it too.
Yeah.
And not acting wise, but as a character. Like when he's up on that stand, it's just, he's just sings like a canary, like they say.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
Yes. You were in a position last Tuesday night to see who committed this act of vandalism. Who was it?
Well, I have an idea who it was.
No, not an idea, Mr. Willis. Did you see or did you not see?
Well, I didn't have my contacts in. I was in the library, I'd taken my glasses off, and I was going to put my contacts back in. Then I helped Sims close up, and the next thing I know, we're outside, and I hear this sound, and I didn't have any time to put my contacts in.
Whom with your limited vision did you see?
Like I say, it was blurry. I can't see without my contacts.
What did you see, Mr. Willis?
What? You mean definitively?
Stop fencing with me, Mr. Willis. Tell me what you saw.
All right, now don't hold me to this, but no contacts. It's dark. and everything. I mean,
Mr. Willis!
maybe Harry Havemeyer, Trent Potter, and Jimmy Jameson.
I not to change the subject too much, but this Thanksgiving dinner, I loved the Thanksgiving dinner scene. That was so intense. It reminded me of like the Fishes episode in season 2 of The Bear. I have a feeling that definitely inspired that. And I was so happy to see it because I've been looking for I've always wanted to make like a letterboxd list of just the most chaotic Thanksgiving dinners. And it's kind of hard sometimes to like find that. And now I'm excited to add this one because that shit was crazy.
Yeah, it got escalated real quick.
Oh yeah. The escalation of this film was so wild. Even like, their first dinner in New York. He's like, Charlie's like, what am I doing here? And he's like, yeah, well, I'm going to do all this fun stuff and then I'm going to kill myself. And he's like, and then the like server pulls up and they're like, hi, what can I get you? And he's sitting there with like tears in his eyes. Like, what the fuck is happening right now?
Poor kid.
So good. This is such a like classic 90s movie too. I loved it. Like so sentimental in a bizarre way.
It's very 90s. It's a great way to put it. There are, as you mentioned, the Holdovers. I thought about that film as well. A lot of similarities between this and the Holdovers, the Alexander Payne film that came out last year. You've got the prep school as kind of the baseline. You've got the young student stuck with the older grouchy guy. And then both movies take place around a holiday. There's like a road trip element to both movies. And of course, both characters must learn from each other on their road to redemption. But you see the difference in styles between decades. This film, as you mentioned, very 90s. We're in a lot of 90s, especially studio dramas. The emotions are just turned up to 11. The art of subtlety is essentially dead. There is nothing subtle about Pacino's performance in here. There's nothing subtle about Philip Seymour Hoffman's performance in this movie. And we've talked about in the previous 2 episodes how he is the master of subtlety. And he is not subtle in this. He's just like, I'm a dick. He might as well just be coming out and saying, I'm an asshole.
Yeah. That line where he's like, that's really quite a piece of machinery.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like, okay, relax.
Whereas the Holdovers, being made today, a lot more subtlety to go around. And not only that, it's an homage to films of the 70s and the 60s where there was also a lot more subtlety to go around. So it's just an interesting perspective to kind of watch these 2 movies pretty closely together and see what different approaches can do to the story and to ultimately see how it affects you in emotional payoff. And for some people, probably this kind of approach might work a little bit better. For some people, the more subtle approach may work a little bit better. I'm more of a fan of the subtle approach, but I totally understand if you are more of a fan of this, because that speech that Pacino gives during that essentially courtroom hearing for this fucking high school.
Yeah, it's so intense.
It's pretty stirring. It's like, fucking movies. Yeah, let's go,
No, totally. He's like, I want to take a flamethrower to this place. It's like, okay, again, relax.
But yeah, Pacino's performance, since we're talking about acting, my God. Here's the thing with Pacino's performance is like the first 15 minutes of this movie, I'm like, okay, this is absolutely ridiculous. This is so silly. This is borderline hilarious what he's doing with this character. Yeah. But I was totally engrossed and I was like, I can't look away. Like I'm totally captivated and mesmerized. And then you just get like accustomed to it. And then by the end, you're just like, I'm walking out in the street going to my liquor store and I'm like, give me that over there, you son of a bitch. I'm like,
ooh-ah.
Ooh-ah.
That was my favorite. It's so true, though, actually. I'm glad to hear you say that, because when I first, like you said, in the first 15 minutes of like our introduction to Frank is his name? Yeah. I was like, what's going on here? Like, what is Pacino doing right now?
Right.
But then it pays off. I was really surprised that, I think, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this was his Oscar-winning performance out of like so many amazing films.
He won the Academy Award for this, yes.
Yeah, I was really surprised by that. I mean, obviously it's a great performance, but just, with how many iconic performances he has under his belt, I was surprised this was like the winner.
Well, you know what the Academy Awards will do from time to time, Bella, is they, how do I put this? They fuck up a lot. And what they will do is they say, ooh, we fucked up there, and we fucked up there, and we fucked up there, and we fucked up there.
Right.
Pacino should have like 3 Academy Awards if, hindsight being 2020. So what we'll do now is this performance where he's going, tits, nipples. Let's give him the Academy Award for that one.
That checks out. Oh, it's so good. I mean, he does have a lot of great lines in this. Like that scene when they're getting out of the taxi in New York, and he's like, I think Charlie kind of like grabs his arm and he goes, "Are you blind? Yeah. Are you goddamn blind? And why are you taking my arm?"
Right.
I was like, oh my God, it was so funny. And I was like, that's so fair. Like, let him lead.
There is one element of this movie that I'm not a fan of, and Sonja and I were kind of talking about this. Was, first of all, I think it should be mentioned, I think this movie is an adaptation or a remake of an Italian film from like the 50s or 60s, which I have not seen. So I'm not sure if the character in that film is blind as well. But in this film, according to Frank and some of his family members, his life pretty much ended essentially, as he knows it, when he became blind. A lot of the source of his woes and his like overall plight, his darkness, as he says, is, he blames on the blindness. And I'm like, I don't know. There's millions of blind people who live rich, fulfilled, full lives. So that element was like a little off to me. They kind of like touch on it, but he himself never has that moment of like, okay, it's not the blindness. It's, the PTSD and the fact that I'm an asshole and an alcoholic, maybe those are the source of your woes. Like, they dance around it, but they never like fully go there, which I think is not just the depiction of people with disabilities in film, but also I feel like the character needed a little bit of that, a little bit of a come to Jesus moment, if you will.
It also was like, it didn't really make sense that he would keep blaming everything on being blind, because he was also like totally fine. Like, people would, and there were so many scenes where like, he'd be like, "Oh, take your hand out of your pocket." And they're like, "What? How'd you know that?" It's kind of ridiculous, but to like have this be
I got radar.
The whole thing. Yeah. So it's like, clearly like the blindness is not your biggest issue here.
Yeah, it's not a handicap for you. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I totally agree with you. And I think it is important to note that in this film, of course.
But but overall, as I said, his performance is captivating. Pacino's, that is, it is captivating. It is mesmerizing, and it is sure as shit memorable. Like,
yeah, definitely,
very, very memorable.
I mean, I feel like that scene when they go back to the hotel after driving the car was pretty heartbreaking to me. He's so broken inside at that point. Like, and when he's quiet, it's so much scarier than when he's like yelling. Because he's always yelling. So those moments where he's like really quiet and kind of like just inside of himself those were like the most heartbreaking moments, where I was like really invested of like, ooh, what's going on psychologically with his character right now.
Totally. And then you think about that, like, he's living in that side house of his niece, and you're just like, that's probably most of this
Yeah.
dude's life is him having those moments,
Yeah, just being alone, like
Mhm.
isolated. Yeah, that's what makes the like end scene so great too.
Yeah.
With the
Yeah.
kids. Yeah. Good stuff, honestly. I enjoyed this movie. I think it is really funny. It's called Scent of a Woman, and that's such a big bit throughout it.
Yeah.
But don't know if that to me is just very 90s. Like I'm like
So
that
90s.
would never happen now. But
This
even
movie-
like oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say this movie is such a like written by men movie,
Oh, yes, absolutely.
It's all boys prep school, and they're always talking about the pussy, and they're all, and it's just it was a very male dominated early 90s movie. Not necessarily in a bad way. It's just like, oh
no, yeah. You just notice it.
Yeah.
It's obvious.
And before we move on, we should mention, we mentioned it in the last episode, but I'm just going to re-mention it here, that this was the movie that Paul Thomas Anderson watched.
Oh, yeah.
And said, hey, who's that kid, that Philip Seymour Hoffman? Who's that twerp with the floofy hair, that pompous little asshole? That's my guy. That's the guy I'm hooking my anchor to for my next 5 movies. And he did it.
That is so funny. So was this Philip Seymour Hoffman's first role, or just the role that Paul Thomas Anderson discovered him from?
I think just the role that Paul Thomas Anderson discovered him from.
Yeah.
I think
he's young.
He's very young, yeah. He had been in a couple movies before this, and I think he got his like first quote unquote like role as one of the criminals on like a Law and Order episode or something.
Oh, yes, that's right. Okay, yeah. I remember seeing that on IMDb now.
Is it Law and Order, or was it NYPD?
I think
one of those serials.
I think it was Law and Order. Yeah.
God damn, that show's been on for a long time.
Yeah, that's insane to think about.
So, Scent of a Woman, it is available on demand. But if you don't want to be demanding, because who wants to be demanding, you could check out your local video stores. And if you live in LA, I recommend Vidiots. I recommend Cinephile Video. There's also Videotech in Pasadena. Visit your local video stores because they're still around. They need some love. And it's just way more fun to go into a video store and walk around and look at the DVD boxes. And you're amongst your other cinephiles. And you get to have a conversation with somebody instead of just sitting on your couch scrolling through
for 5 hours.
For 5 hours being like, what am I going to watch? What am I going to watch? You go to a video store, you pick it. You say, holy shit, I've been looking for this all my life. Or at least for, a couple of weeks. And you say, I'm renting this, and you go home and you watch that.
Yes. I love it.
Anyways, moving on. Enough old Manny Barra screaming at the clouds again.
Our second film of the day is a 1999 drama thriller that has heavily influenced a handful of films to follow it, I would say, including one that we've already talked about in our bonus episode, More Favorites of 2023. That is Emerald Fennell's Saltburn. But the OG film behind this, the one we're talking about today, is, of course, Anthony Minghella's The Talented Mr. Ripley. The Talented Mr. Ripley is a picturesque European summer vacation gone very, very, very wrong. So the film stars Matt Damon as Tom Ripley, a scrawny and quiet young man who finds himself in a world of luxury when he's paid to travel to the beautiful coast of Italy to convince a wealthy aristocrat's son to return home to New York. Tom plays his part perfectly, subtly charming the socks-off Dickie Greenleaf, a born-to-be-wild and free rich kid enjoying an extremely prolonged European holiday with his stunning girlfriend, Marge Sherwood. And I have to say, I think this is one of the most beautiful cinematic couples of all time, solely based on looks. Their relationship, on the other hand, is a little bit more tedious. But we've got a wickedly handsome Jude Law in his prime as Dickie Greenleaf. That smile gets me every time. And a breathtakingly beautiful Gwyneth Paltrow as well as his beloved Marge. Anyways, so over the course of his vacation in Italy, clever Tom very quickly and seamlessly immerses himself in Dickie's world, because from the very beginning, we see that he has meticulously catered his entire personality to match all of Dickie's interests. And Tom really hits the nail on the head with a carefully curated obsession with jazz music, Dickie's absolute favorite. So upon discovering this shared taste, Dickie and Tom, of course, go off on their own little jazz whirlwind together. And from there, their friendship becomes more and more intense. But alas, all good things must come to an end, and it's not long before Dickie's true nature comes to light. Easily bored, not just with activities, but his own people, Dickie starts to distance himself from Tom. And adding to the mounting tension is Freddie Miles, played by our man of the hour, Philip Seymour Hoffman. Freddie is the wild card friend. He's this really intense personality who frequently disrupts Tom and Dickie's relationship throughout the film. But what Dickie doesn't realize is that Tom has grown dangerously accustomed to his new life of freedom and luxury and will do just about anything to make sure it all doesn't just slip away. I really love this movie. I think it's one of my favorite thrillers. I remember the first time I watched it, I thought it was like the best thing I'd ever seen. I will say it may not have the best rewatch value in terms of like that first watch is just so jarring and incredible, but I did enjoy revisiting it. You know, the cinematography and the setting with Anne Roth and Gary Jones' incredible Academy Award nominated costumes just makes this film such a visual spectacle, in my opinion. It really makes me want to go on vacation. But anyways, before I ramble too much more, Nick, what do you think of The Talented Mr. Ripley?
I agree. I really like this movie a lot. And I came to this movie late. This was one that I did not see when it came out. Didn't see for many, many years, in fact.
Oh, wow.
When I saw this was during the pandemic, I believe.
Me too.
Really? No shit.
Yeah.
I believe Sonja and I made a escape to Big Bear. And I believe that we watched this. Sonja can correct me, but I believe we watched this the weekend that I proposed to her.
Oh, that's so cute.
Or the week that I proposed to her. And you know what we did, Bella? We went to a video store and rented this. And
oh my God.
brought it home and watched it. So anyways, I really, really dig this movie. I'm a Damon guy. I'm just a Matt Damon kind of guy. You know, I love him.
Fair enough.
And obviously a Philip Seymour Hoffman guy. And again, another element of the Philip Seymour Hoffman repertoire where we get just kind of like the pressing, threatening character. And he's really good at that too. There's that big confrontation scene where he shows up to, Tom's place where he's like, Tom has been posing as Dickie for weeks or months or whatever. And Freddie shows up at his place and he's just like sniffing around and snooping around. And he's pulling this thread of like, oh my God, you are totally full of shit. But he does this little thing where he's like, it's just so much charisma. It's so over the top, but the fucking charisma oozing off of Hoffman is just out of this world. Where he's like hitting the piano keys. Oh. And with each piano key he hits, he like does this like little thing with his head and his eyes where he's like, and he keeps interrupting Tom. And then the last one he does, he like throws his hand up too. It's like, oh my God, you guys have to look it up. It's so
good.
So good. It's just like, God damn, this guy's he's just having fun, man. You could just tell he's having fun with this role.
Where's Dickie? How are you?
I'm good. Yes, thank you. He's gone. He went to dinner. He's at Otello's. Do you know Otello's?
No. I don't think he's at dinner at 6:30 p.m. If you said he was still at lunch, maybe I'd believe you. Incredible. guys just, disappeared off the face of the earth.
I guess.
The landlady, as far as I can tell, the landlady said he was here right now.
Search the place. I don't know why you would imagine that Dickie would hide from you.
Because he's been hiding from me. What happened at Christmas?
What about Christmas?
She's supposed to come skiing. You get a cable or a call or a little note or frankly, a card.
Well, he's been very involved with his music. I think his theory is that you have to go into a cocoon before you can be a butterfly.
Oh, which is horse shit. You heard him play this thing? Well, you can.
How did you find him? Such an out-of-the-way apartment. Can I fix you a drink?
No, thanks. The American Express. Some kid.
It's a...
Are you living here?
No, I'm staying here for a few days. And it's a new piano. Probably shouldn't. Probably shouldn't.
Did this place come furnished? Like, it doesn't look like Dickie. It's really horrible, isn't it? It's so bourgeois.
So yeah, it's fun to see him in yet another world and another element in another, for lack of a better term, but also kind of pun intended, class, and see how he plays in the sand in that world also. So it's
totally.
It's fun to watch. But yeah, I mean, this movie is super juicy. And we talked about that Saltburn movie in one of our earlier episodes, and I was kind of lukewarm on that movie when it came out, and having watched this and having watched 6 Degrees of Separation, which we also discussed recently on our Donald Sutherland tribute episode, I think I'm even less warm on Saltburn.
Yeah.
I think I'm now cold on Saltburn just because I think here are 2 other films that have kind of the same idea and same concept, but have far more rich, dense characters and that pull off the gripping tension way better.
Yeah, I honestly totally agree with you. For some reason, I still love Saltburn. Like, I just love the vibes of it.
It's pretty. It's a really pretty movie.
I just had so much fun watching it in the theater that I have to give it that. But and for a long time, I did try to like defend it as like its own thing. But then revisiting Talented Mr. Ripley, I was like, oh man, this is not original. Like, Saltburn is not original by any means. So I totally agree with that. And I think obviously these films did it so much better.
There's one interesting thing that I noticed between those 3 movies, though, when I was like, writing about this movie. And I don't really have an answer for it, but I just thought it was an interesting little piece that connected all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Saltburn, Talented Mr. Ripley, and what was the other one? 6 Degrees.
6 Degrees.
Yeah, 6 Degrees of Separation, where the characters, the main characters, the deceivers of all of these are gay.
Yeah, I thought
like,
that was really interesting too. Yeah.
Interesting. I'm not sure what that says, but it says something.
Yeah, I know. The thing that's bizarre to me about that too is like, it's in all 3 of those films. Actually, I haven't seen all of 6 Degrees of Separation, so I don't want to speak to that. But in Saltburn and what am I trying to say? Oh, Talented Mr. Ripley. It's bizarre to me that they never really fully acknowledge that in a way, like, or I don't know, like it seems like there's no rhyme or reason, but it's such a big aspect of the character, and like also the character's relationships with the other main characters. So like I had forgotten how much tension there is between Dickie and Tom in this.
Yeah.
Or just like how blatant it was. I remember being like, oh yeah, there's definitely some like homoerotic subtext here, but like it's more than that. Like that scene in the bath, I was like, oh my god, this is way more overt than I thought, than I remembered. Yeah. I was like, wow, this is hype. But also I was like, what's going on? Like where is this going? And then it never really like follows through on that aspect of the plot, which I think is really interesting. And I don't know, like you said, I don't know what that means, but maybe our listeners have some insight on that. Let us know, guys.
Let us know. There may be source material that I'm not aware of that informs all of these movies. Like there may be, because they're all very similar. So maybe there's some sort of like, play that all of these films are kind of adapting.
Well, I know that this movie was based off of a novel.
Oh, there you go.
From the 50s, but I don't know how much it like sticks to that. Because I read that Meredith, Kate Blanchett's character, is not in the book, but she's in the movie. So I thought that was interesting because she plays pretty damn big part in this.
That's a nice addition
by the end of it. Yeah, I thought that was really brilliant. But yeah, I'm curious what the original source text says about the like queerness of this story.
Yeah.
So
yeah, our audience, if you guys know or have any insight to that, please let us know. But yeah, you mentioned Kate Blanchett. I mean, holy shit, what a stacked cast this is.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of actors popping up that we have seen in some of our other Philip Seymour Hoffman movies. We get Philip Baker Hall pops up. We get James Rebhorn pops up. Lots of really nice surprises. But I mean, what a stacked freaking cast.
Yeah, it's actually funny. I think we've had a like connection, an actor's credit connection to every single movie we've watched for Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Absolutely.
I mean, obviously with like PTA, he has muses, so that's a given. But even with the others, like I remember getting a lot of Amy Ryan, which I was like, what the hell is this connection? This is so random.
Amy Ryan kept popping up. I mean, we could totally re-release all of these episodes as a Julianne Moore retrospective. And
yes, exactly. Oh man, yeah, that would be a good time as well. Yeah, I have to say, it's funny watching these like supporting roles because I love Philip Seymour Hoffman so much that I just want more of him. And we get such a small dose of him in this film, but his character is so abrasive and annoying and he plays this so perfectly that I don't know if I could have watched much more of him in this. I think it was the perfect amount of screen time. And Hoffman ate every second of it.
Yeah, when he comes in, he raises that dial of tension by 50 decibels. It's really
yeah. Well, because for me, I'm curious what you think, but I think that his character clocks Tom straight away as like suspicious.
Yeah.
Like he is the only one to be like, no, this guy is incredibly suspicious and a leech and a player, and he's convinced from the second he lays eyes on him, and I love that aspect. And I think obviously that's also why his character is not around that much, because if he was, Tom probably wouldn't get away with anything. But I love how unsettling he is too. Like that, I watched this with a friend who'd never seen it before, Gabby.
Oh, that's really fun. That's fun.
Yeah, I was like, if I'm gonna rewatch it, I need to watch it with someone who doesn't know what's about to happen. And that scene when all three of them are on the boat, it's like the trio and then Freddie, and he like catches Tom watching Dickie and Marge get it on below deck, and he goes, Tommy, how's the peeping? And he goes, and then it's like so unsettling. He goes, Tommy. And she was like, what the hell is going on? And then the scene just cuts after that. Like it's so unsettling.
Yeah, he keeps saying it. As the peeping Tommy. Tommy.
I loved it. I was like, oh, only he could deliver those lines flawlessly.
Yeah. Yeah, really, really strong work from Hoffman. This is what we talked about in the last episode,
Yeah.
Maximize your minutes, boy.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Definitely a worth watching kind of film. I would say a film worth watching.
This is a great
time.
Oh yeah, this is a great popcorn movie. If you are looking for some thrills, some chills, it's sexy. It's got all kinds of really pretty people. It's got twists and turns. It's just, it's juicy. It's a juicy, juicy movie. So
really
if you're looking for something to put on and you don't know what to put on and you're just like, it will engage the hell out of you and get your heart pumping for 2 hours plus. And then you'll be completely satisfied. Talented Mr. Ripley.
Agree.
Talented Mr. Ripley. Good flick. Really good flick.
Yeah, I think this one is also on demand, but obviously I can guarantee you'll find it at your local video stores as well. It's a popular one.
It's a popular flick. Well, speaking of popular, my wife, Sonja Mereu, she is going to talk to y'all during the break. And it's going to be Sonja's Movie Minute is what we call this segment. And she is going to be discussing another great supporting performance from Mr. Philip Seymour Hoffman. So be sure to stick around for that and much more with us, Bella and I, as we discuss The Big Lebowski after the break. All that and more here on the Gimme 3 podcast.
Hello, I'm Sonja, and this is my Movie Minute. Pirate Radio, aka The Boat That Rocked, is an ensemble movie in the best way. The film is an energetic playlist of 60s music and fantastic performances. Pirate Radio is based on a real thing from 1960s England. Due to censorship, the radio played almost no rock and roll, so DJs would broadcast contemporary rock and pop music 24 hours a day from offshore ships that were out of government jurisdiction. I have no idea if the people and lifestyle on the real boats were anything like the film, but according to the internet, it might have been even wilder than the film's depiction. The cast of music-loving rascals includes Bill Nighy, Chris O'Dowd, Nick Frost, Rhys Darby, Rhys Ifans, and Tom Sturridge. In his supporting role as the Count, the sole American DJ on the boat named Hard Rock, Philip Seymour Hoffman is up to his usual excellence. The Count is kind of a blowhard. He's fun-loving, competitive, sentimental, and has great taste in music, of course. In some of Phil's supporting roles, he really gets to ham it up and steal the scenes, like in Lebowski or Mission Impossible. Whereas in Pirate Radio, he slides in with the rest of the cast in a really collaborative role that's less showy, but very enjoyable and lets his co-stars really shine. I will point out that this film is pretty male-dominated, and the female characters are lacking in both depth and quantity. But I still think this movie is a ton of fun and worth watching. Just knowing that these boat-based radio stations were a real thing is a pretty fun tidbit of history, and it reminds us that art really is revolutionary.
All right, welcome back to the Gimme 3 podcast, everybody. A series for cinephiles. We are wrapping up our series on Philip Seymour Hoffman after an episode of his where we highlighted his starring performances and another episode where we highlighted his collaborations with Paul Thomas Anderson. The final episode in the series, supporting roles. We discussed Scent of a Woman, and we discussed The Talented Mr. Ripley. And now, the final film, in the final episode of our series dedicated to Philip Seymour Hoffman, we are going to discuss The Big Lebowski. from 1998. Written and directed by the Coen brothers, Joel and Ethan Coen. And when they do it together, whoosh, it's good shit.
Yeah.
We got Jeff Bridges. We've got John Goodman. We've got Julianne Moore. We've got Steve Buscemi. We've got Philip Seymour Hoffman. We got Tara Reid. We've got David Huddleston. Another stacked cast for you. So, for those of you who've been living under a rock and haven't seen The Big Lebowski, I'm envious because you get to watch it for the first time ever. So, God bless you. That's amazing. But B, here's a little background of it. Jeff Bridges, he plays Jeff Lebowski. But nobody calls him Jeff Lebowski. People call him the dude because that is essentially what he is. That's his essence. That's his aura. You know, he doesn't do much. He's in a bowling league. He hangs out with his two good friends. He drinks his White Russians obsessively. He smokes his J's. And he listens to his Creedence Clearwater Revival. But one day, a group of gangsters mistake the dude for another Jeff Lebowski. And they come to his place, they tear his home apart, and they piss on his fucking rug, man. And the dude does not take kindly to this. So the dude goes to this other Jeffrey Lebowski's house. And this is, you know, a pretty seemingly rich, elite business type. And the assistant of this rich business guy is Brandt, who's our Philip Seymour Hoffman. You know, some shit happens. Old man Lebowski's wife gets kidnapped. And he asks the dude to help him with this money exchange. And this sends the dude and his friends on this wild journey filled with porn stars and nihilists and red herrings and a bunch of other crazy shit. I'm not doing the film any justice, but it is an absolute blast to watch. It is an incredibly written comedy that contains, I'd say, a joke every 25 seconds. There's a hilarious joke in this script, but it still maintains this wonderful, rich character work. And it's got quite a bit of a heart also, which sneaks up on you. Before we start dissecting it, Bella, what are your thoughts on The Big Lebowski?
Yes, I think you summed it up perfectly, especially a spoiler-free summation. It made me want to throw it on right now.
Nice.
I think this is one of the funniest movies in the world. Like, the humor might not be for everyone. This is my kind of shit. It is utterly unhinged, and it really does take you on just the trippiest, wildest, most ridiculous ride. I love the Coen brothers films, and I love Jeff Bridges and John Goodman even more. Like, those are some of my top two guys. The dude and Walter are easily one of my favorite cinematic duos of all time. They're just so funny and so iconic. I actually was the dude for Halloween a couple years ago.
Oh, no kidding.
And it was my favorite Halloween costume. I've never been so comfortable in my entire life.
Dude, you got to put that on the Facebook.
I know.
Or not the Facebook, on the what do you call it? Instagram.
On our Instagram? Yeah. Oh my God. I should. It was pretty good, honestly. I have to admit, I kind of nailed it.
On the Facebook. But, you should put it on our MySpace page while you're at it.
Yeah. I love it. Sadly, I didn't get my boyfriend to dress up as Walter with me, but he was a beer can instead, which I think,
that goes hand in
hand. Yeah. Pretty much everything the dude could ever need. But yeah, this film has such a special place in my heart. I remember watching it for the first time with all my friends, and recently too. It was it was like 4 years ago, which I feel like I was pretty late to this movie. And my brother, Jack, is the one who put me onto it. So I have to mention him as well. He also has such an incredible talent for doing impressions. He's the kind of guy who will watch a movie and be able to quote it back to you flawlessly.
Wow. Which
is something I'm so jealous of. But he does the best dude impression. I wish he was here to show it. And so I texted him. I was like, what's your favorite dude line right now? Because he was like, it changes all the time.
Yeah.
But he said it's when they introduce Jesus, John Turturro's character. And dude's like, fucking Quintana, that creep can roll, man. I thought that was so funny. I was like, oh, I love it. He's got the most subtle line. It's his favorite. But so I had to shout that out.
So good. So good.
Yeah, every line is so quotable and so like so memorable, but also like you're able to rewatch it so much because, like you said, there's a funny line every 20 seconds. So it's like even the ones you do remember, you'll go back and you'll discover new ones every time. Like it's such a phenomenal movie in that way.
And the more you watch it, like, you know, maybe you aren't going to laugh out loud at every joke after you've seen it 50 times like I have.
Mm-hmm.
But what you start doing is appreciating the craft of the screenplay and the performances, because you're just like, okay, so for example, there is this one scene where the dude has been through some shit and he's fucking tired and he's at his wit's end and he's in a cab and the cab driver is playing Peaceful, Easy Feeling by the Eagles. And the dude goes, man, can you turn that fucking shit off? I fucking hate the Eagles, man. So like, that's funny because it's like,
yeah,
just like,
it's like a calming,
a calming song. And it's just like this, the dude, the most laid back dude, hates the fucking Eagles, you know?
Yeah.
So that's funny. And then it cuts to, you don't see the cab driver. You cut to the cab driver, who's this giant fucking black dude. And he goes, fuck you, man. You want to get the fuck out of my cab. I'm listening to my own shit. And it's like, this giant black dude is listening to the Eagles. Okay, that's funny. And then the next line is the dude's just like, come on, man, I hate the fucking Eagles. And the cab driver just swerves the car, pulls over, kicks him, get the fuck out of my cab. You got like in a 42-second scene, you've got about 5 jokes that happen, 5 different levels of laughter that just come right after another. It's just like, there's no wasted space. There's no fat, you know?
None.
And like, in theory, you could cut that scene, but it says so much about the character and where he's at. He's very undued right now, you know? He's lost his way.
Undued.
He's totally lost his way. And a great way to show that is this scene. But not only do we learn that he's lost his way, we now get, like, I don't know, just like 7 different layers of hilarity. Yeah. It's so good.
It's so clever. There's so many moments. I love the undude line. He's like, calmer than you. Calmer than you.
Calmer than you.
Oh, it kills me. And obviously, okay. Also, I have to shout out Walter. John Goodman, I think, is so fucking funny in this movie. He just, and his character, like, it's just, how do you even begin to come up with someone like that? It's beyond me. It's just great writing, great execution.
You don't have a Walter in your life, Bella?
Not yet.
Well, you haven't hung out with me enough.
Yeah, you might be my Walter.
Just wait till we go bowling.
Whips out a piece. Oh my god. Yeah, I love the dynamic between those two characters, and I love how Walter just escalates everything. Like, he kind of just is, he almost like is the inciting incident and like everything going wrong for the dude.
Yeah, totally.
He just has no self-control and he thinks he knows everything because he fought in Nam.
Right.
But
this is not Nam. There are rules.
Yeah. He's like, I tried pacifism once, not in Nam, of course. It's like, Jesus Christ, dude. This guy is terrifying. But yeah, so I had to shout him out. And then obviously, Philip Seymour Hoffman. Oh my God. I think he is hilarious in this movie. He plays such a little freak.
This is a study. As you can see, the various commendations, awards, citations, honorary degrees, etc.
Very impressive.
Oh, please feel free to inspect them.
Oh, no, I'm not really...
Oh, please. That is the key to the city of Pasadena, which Mr. Lebowski received 2 years ago in recognition of his various civic, that's the Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce Business Achiever Award, which is given, not necessarily given every year.
Hey,
given only when there's a worthy somebody.
Is this him with Nancy?
Yes, indeed. That is Mr. Lebowski with the First Lady, yes. It was taken when Mrs.
That's
Reagan...
Lebowski on the left there?
Yeah, of course, Mr. Lebowski on the left.
So he's a handicapped guy?
Mr. Lebowski is disabled, yes. This picture was taken when Mrs. Reagan was First Lady of the nation. Yes. Not of California.
John?
In fact, he met privately with the president, though unfortunately there wasn't enough time for a photo opportunity.
Nancy's pretty good.
Oh, wonderful woman. We're very happy that...
These are...
those are Mr. Lebowski's children.
Different
so to
mothers,
speak.
huh?
No, they're not.
Racially, he's pretty cool.
They're not literally his children. They're the little Lebowski urban achievers, inner city children of promise, but without the necessary means for a higher education. So Mr. Lebowski is committed to sending all of them to college. Excuse me.
Jeez.
Thank you.
You're far out. I think he's got room for one more.
You never went to college. Please, don't touch that.
I did, but I spent most of my time occupying various administration buildings, smoking a lot of Thai sticks, drinking the ROTC, bowling. Tell you the truth, Brandt, I don't remember most of it.
I really love the way he embodied this character, because I feel like you can almost imagine how this character was written, and then you get to see how he made it his own, kind of.
Right.
And the only way I could think to describe this whole vibe is he's like a political, conservative robot with an affinity for the theatrics. I was like, how do I do this? But the best part to me is that both the robotic nature and the theatrical physicality only gets more and more intense throughout the film. When we first meet him, we notice these mannerisms immediately. It's the first thing you'll notice about him. But then later in the film, there's this scene where the dude gets called back to Mr. Lebowski's manor after his wife has gone missing. And I love this scene so much because the whole scene is shot or staged and performed as this ridiculous, campy tragedy and mystery. And both Brandt, Hoffman's character, and Mr. Lebowski are just living for the drama in this moment. Brandt is really overdoing it with his movement in that scene. He's like a robot soldier. He's making 3-point turns and he bows and as he opens the door and hands the ransom note to the dude. It's like he thinks he's in a Shakespeare play. The melodrama of it it's so good. And I think with how melodramatic he is, and then combining it with his uptight formality when he's addressing the dude as dude, just makes for some of the funniest moments. Well, this is our concern, dude. Or,
right.
Well, dude, we just don't know.
Just don't know, dude.
We just don't know. That combination just kills me every single time. It's so funny.
Yeah, I wrote that same scene down where he hands the dude the note, and he the way that he goes back to standing is it's so robotic, but it's also almost like Janet Jackson in Rhythm Nation, where he's just his arms.
Yeah,
it's so fucking funny.
It's so funny.
And you know what? I mean, he just knows the score, Hoffman, man, because a lot of the roles that we've been talking about are drama, dramatic roles.
Right.
He knows how to use the shot to his advantage. And when I started working with actors, both as a director and an AED, I really appreciated actors who I used to be annoyed by it when I was young and dumb, which is 2 weeks ago. But actors sometimes would be like, where's the frame? What are you seeing? How much of me are you seeing? They want to know what lens we're shooting on. And I'd be like, God damn, none of your fucking business. Hit your mark.
Do your thing.
Yeah. But I started appreciating it at some point in my career because you start to see Philip Seymour Hoffman, for example, and a lot of the dramatic roles that we have seen him portray, the camera mostly hangs on his face for a lot of it. And why wouldn't you? Because he's got like all these great expressions. He's so great with his eyes and, subtlety. He's great at subtlety.
Yeah.
But in something like this, where it's a comedy, and a comedy where his character is not only allowed to be, but kind of demanded to be big.
Mm-hmm.
The Coens, they hold the camera back a lot on him, further back, and he just uses that to his advantage. The way that he walks, the physicality, the way that he opens the doors in that scene that you're talking about. It's like, dun, dun, dun.
It's like bending like nose to his knees.
Right.
It's like, oh my goodness. It's like a dance performance.
He's doing all this weird shit that is so hilarious, and he's not even maybe positive that he's in focus. He's like in the background. If you watch him, he's doing all these like weird physicalities. And it's just really funny. I also wrote something similar to you. I put like, I think that this character, in my mind, I have no idea that this is what Philip Seymour Hoffman did, but it feels like the backstory that Hoffman gave this character is a repressed homosexual who is a political conservative who is a big fan of Broadway, and this is his stage. This is what he gets to do his performances.
Yes, under the most like abusive boss in the world. It's so oh my god, I love that. Yeah, I love another aspect of his character is how much he's like how much he's afraid of his boss, which I think we really see in the scene and when his boss like picks up the dude.
Yeah.
I don't know, they just like kidnap him basically in this car. And of course the dude, Mr. Lebowski's losing his shit. The dude is just babbling, new shit has come to light. New shit has come to light. So and the whole time Brandt is just gritting his teeth, shitting himself. He's petrified. His boss is like such an angry, egotistical maniac that Brandt can't act like a real human being. And it just kills me in that scene as well. I think top tier performance. But I would say, and sorry, I'm talking so much, but I think his best scene is, obviously in the ones we've been talking about, it's so much of like full body physicality. But there's one scene in particular where he gets a lot of close-ups, and I think it's my favorite of his in the whole film. And it's when dude meets Bunny, Mr. Lebowski's wife, for the first time. And she says something like, suck your cock for $1,000. And Hoffman lets out the most political, like, laugh. It's so awkward. And he's grinning from ear to ear like the fucking Cheshire cat. And he's so visibly uncomfortable, but trying to play it off like he's not. And then she's like, Brandt has to pay another $100 to watch. And he goes, that's marvelous. And it's like one of my favorite lines in the whole film, because you're just watching his face literally turn beet red. And he's just got this permanent grin and like all the wrinkles on his face because he's like squeezing it together. It's so brilliant. It's so funny every time.
I'm just gonna go find a cash machine.
It's like, okay, dude. Oh, it's so good. I love this movie with my whole heart. I could rewatch it over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's the thing about it. It is one of the most rewatchable movies ever. It's so, because it's so funny. You can take what you want from it because, of course, if you take it at face value, it's got a very clear and plain plot that works well. It's gripping. It's hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. The characters are so lovable. But then of course there's like all these other theories which you can, for lack of a better term, abide by or not. There's a lot of fan theory out there about what this movie means, and it's a lot deeper than is on the surface. And sometimes you could play in those, and it's fun to rewatch it through that lens. If you want to smoke a J and put your tinfoil hat on, there's some fun theories out there that I think are worth merit. But it's just enjoyable, no matter how you watch it. It's like if you don't enjoy this movie, you perhaps don't have a pulse.
Yeah, I think so too, honestly. I think, and like you said, there's so many fun characters that pop up. Like even obviously Julianne Moore is amazing in this film.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have to shout out David Thewlis, who just like randomly pops up as, and even the dude is like, what the hell is this guy doing here? Like, who is he? And he just does this like creepy little laugh every now and then. And you're like, that's why this movie is also absurd to watch if you've been smoking, because you're just like, what is happening right now? Like, I feel like the dude.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, the dude abides, man.
The dude abides. The dude abides.
This aggression will not stand.
I'll talk about my favorite joke of the movie before, except for that Eagles one that I talked about earlier, because I think that is the sequence that always gets me to cackle every single time because of that cab driver's performance. He's so good.
He's so good. He's memorable for like a 2-second bit.
Fuck you, man. This is my music. It's like, maximize your minutes, boy. No, my favorite joke is actually there's no dialogue in it at all.
Oh, I'm excited.
It's when he's at Jackie Treehorn's house, and who's this wealthy porn producer / gangster, and Jackie Treehorn's kind of interrogating the dude, and Jackie Treehorn gets a phone call. And you see him over there on the phone, and you see him like writing down something as he's on the phone, and he looks over his shoulder at the dude, and you're just like, oh fuck, what the fuck's he writing down? And Jackie Treehorn leaves the scene, he exits the scene. And as he does, the dude fucking jumps to his feet and he runs across and he takes a pencil and he, with the old mystery movies, you take the pencil and you rub the lead across the clean pad. Just to see what the person wrote down. So he's trying to solve the mystery, and it's just a picture of a dude with a boner. It's such a swerve. So it's such a fucking swerve. It
really is, because you're like, oh, obviously this guy means business. And then you see that. Oh my god.
And then that piece of paper comes back in the next scene. It's just, again, no fat, no wasted moments, no wasted energy. It's just, it is such a wacky, bizarre movie, but it's crafted by masters, absolute masters of screenwriting and direction. So it is unique in that way. And as I mentioned, the ending, it kind of sneaks up on you. It gets a little emotional, which I think is just like kind of a testament to the characters that have been built, because it really wraps up quite beautifully. It's there's a sweet tenderness in this film also, in addition to all of the craziness and hilarity and the crime element, There's a tenderness. There's a heartbeat at the center of this movie too that I think is not discussed enough.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I fell in love with the dude. I love him. He is. I would love to embody his energy in my life every now and then. We can't all be the dude.
We can't all be the dude, but as they say in the ending, it's good to know that he's out there.
Exactly.
Doing his thing.
Exactly. Doing his thing.
Well, you are going to have to post that picture of you as the dude.
I will.
Or hey, maybe you just put that on the freaking Patreon. So that way
people have to pay to see it.
People have to pay,
I mean, it's good as gold, so.
That's very undude of us, though.
That is very undude, yeah. No, we're for the people. Yeah, you guys can watch The Big Lebowski. I think it's streaming on Prime right now, Amazon Prime.
Mm-hmm.
So check it out. Of course, this will definitely be at your local video stores. I know it.
And it pops up frequently on repertory screenings. I will say, the last thing I will say, sorry to lie to you and say that I was done, is that Sonja loves this movie so much that there is a poster of The Big Lebowski, not just in our apartment, not just in our room, in our fucking living room. There is a poster of The Big Lebowski. And I had no influence on this. This poster was there when I met Sonja, 10 years ago. I walked in and there's a posters of Blue Velvet and Pulp Fiction and The Big Lebowski. And I said, God damn.
Wow. The Holy Trinity.
I think I love this woman.
Oh, that is so cute. I love that. Damn, I need to get a Big Lebowski poster. I bet there's some good ones out there.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, that's a wrap. Over the course of 3 weeks, I think it's safe to say that we've seen the full spectrum of humanity in Philip Seymour Hoffman's incredible performances. From his more unpleasant and harrowing characters like the conniving Andy Hoffman or the formidable Master Lancaster Dodd, to some of his most heartwarming characters like Phil, the hospice caretaker with a heart of gold, or my personal favorite, Scotty J. I forgot to mention it earlier, actually, so I want to add it here. I was reading an interview with Hoffman for Slate in 2006, and they were talking about all the different types of roles he's taken on in his career at this point in time. And they asked him if he has a thing for playing unpleasant people. And Hoffman said, ultimately, all characters have some negative and positive energies. That's just how I see it. I didn't go out looking for negative characters. I went out looking for people who have a struggle and a fight to tackle. That's what interests me. And I think that is the perfect summation of everything that we've seen in the past few weeks, proving what we've been saying every episode, that Hoffman has this undeniable and incredible talent for taking a deeply complex or flawed character and bringing them to life in a way that we never could have imagined. So this may be the conclusion to our Philip Seymour Hoffman tribute on the podcast. But again, we've barely dipped our toes into the great depths of his incredible filmography. There are still so many more films and performances to be enjoyed all of these years later. So check them out and let us know which ones you love most. Anyways, we hope you all enjoyed this episode of the Gimme 3 podcast. Thank you so much for listening once again. And if you're enjoying our episodes and you want to help us reach more cinephiles like you, we'd love for you to download our episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to us. It's just a super easy way to support the show and make sure that you never miss out on the next episode. We also want to hear from you guys. We want to hear your thoughts on the episodes, what you want to see and what you want to hear in future episodes, future themes, future films. So you can follow us on Instagram at Gimme3Podcast. That's GIMME, spell out 3 podcast, and leave comments on our posts to let us know. You guys can also send us a text through the send us a text link in each of our episode descriptions. That's a super easy way to let us know what you're thinking. And last thing, if you want even more of the Gimme 3 podcast, we recently dropped a bonus episode with me and Sonja Mereu, where we talk about some of our favorite hidden gems we discovered in the last couple months. So if you want to hear us talk about Vera Drew's The People's Joker, or one of the best movies ever, Run Lola Run, then you should definitely sign up for our Patreon. It's just $5 a month. Once again, I want to shout out all of our listeners and subscribers. Your support means the world to us. And Nick, tell our lovely listeners where they can find you on the socials.
You can find me on Letterboxd at Nicholas Ibarra. Ibarra is with a Y. On Instagram at Nicholas Ibarra. And on Twitter, also known as X, at Nicholas P. Ibarra. And the P stands for Plant Lover.
That's a good one. And you guys can find me on Instagram at Portrait of a Cinephile or on Letterboxd at Beth Stratus. That's just B and then my last name, F Stratus. Anyways, thanks again for joining us here on the Gimme 3 podcast, and we'll see you at the movies.